You're listening to the Platform Launchers podcast. I'm John Stange. It's great to have you with us. As always, I just had a lovely talk with our members club. And this week, we're going to be talking about something related to podcasting. I know many of you listen to the show via our podcast. Some of you watch us on YouTube. It's exciting to connect with you wherever you check this show out. And our big question this week, and it comes from an experience I just had with someone. So I've got an interesting story for you. But our big question is, can I really make money hosting a podcast? I think probably there are plenty of people that want to do podcasts. One of our members, Dawn, was just talking about a friend of hers who is interested in doing a podcast a few months from now. And a lot of people have this thought, maybe I should do a podcast. But then people think, all right, well, if I do this, if I dedicate time to it, is it something that I could actually earn a living from doing? So that's what we're going to talk about. If you haven't had a chance to visit our website, platformlaunchers.com, I'd encourage you to stop over at the website. We've got a ton of stuff over there, including our newest course, which is how to build a positive and profitable membership community. If you want to learn how to do that, you can find out. And the course is, I'm getting a lot of good feedback. It's been our fastest selling course thus far. It's our newest course, and the pace at which it's been selling and the feedback that I've been getting tells me that we just released something that people are finding extremely beneficial. So I'm excited that that's finally available, but you could stop over at platformlaunchers.com, go to the university page, and you can find our latest course, How to Build a Positive and Profitable Membership Community. Now, I mentioned we're talking about podcasting this week, and very recently, just a little over a week ago, I was asked the question, how can I make money doing a podcast? How can I make money doing a podcast? Again, maybe you've wondered that yourself. I think a lot of people have wondered that. It's a question I've heard a lot. It's a question I've asked as well, particularly when I was new to podcasting. I got into podcasting very seriously in 2015, so approaching a decade. And I wondered if it was something that could turn into an income someday. But let me start as I attempt to answer that question. How can I make money doing a podcast? Well, let me start by telling you who asked me that question, and then I'm going to fill you in on the exact details of the answer that I gave. And I gave some very specific details, and so it's kind of helpful, though, I think, to hear where this came from, because you may identify with the person in this story. So here's what happened. A little over a week ago, my son Daniel, he's 20 years old, he's a college junior, and he asked me if I would be interested in going golfing. I enjoy golfing. I'm not great at golfing. I'm mediocre at golfing, like most men, right? But I enjoy it. And last summer, I introduced Daniel to the sport as well, and he loves it. He's actually getting pretty good. He has to do some work on his short game, but he drives the ball extremely well, for a lefty, right? But he asked me if I wanted to go golfing, and I said, all right, I'm happy to go. Even though I knew that meant I was going to be paying for two, I still went. And we actually had a lovely time. And we went golfing at a course that's literally across the street from my house. Now, here's the weird thing. I've lived in this house for 16 years, almost exactly 16 years ago to this date. I bought this house. And for some reason, I have never golfed at this course. It is literally within walking distance from my house, across the street from my house. So I was actually kind of interested in going there, partly just to satisfy my curiosity about the course. I still can't believe that I've lived here as long as I have, and I've never golfed at the course directly across the street from my house, but I hadn't. So it was time, and we reserved a tee time. And we got there a few minutes early for that tee time, but the course was way more crowded than we expected. Somehow I think that the course was taken off guard by how much of a crowd they maintained that day, because several groups ahead of us were playing slowly, and I guess things just started to get backed up. And so here's what happened. An employee asked us if we'd be willing to partner with two additional guys to help speed up play. We were just going to do this as a twosome. They said, "Can you make this a foursome?" We said, "Absolutely." We were happy to do so. So he introduced us to two young guys, Zach and Ben, and two guys, I think they're the same exact age as my son. They're both in college. And so we started golfing the rest of the time together. And we had a very fun time. And after a few holes, Ben overheard me talking to my son about a podcasting course that I'm teaching this coming semester at Cairn University, and he said, "You teach podcasting?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And then I said, "Is that something that you're interested in? Is that something that you're into?" And at that point, he said yes, and then he told me all about the podcast he just started. So it's a sports podcast, and he asked me the question every podcaster thinks about, whether you're new to podcasting or whether you've been doing this for a while: how can I make money doing a podcast? He wanted to know, how can I make money doing a podcast? And again, that's always a very fun question to try and answer, because there's actually many ways to monetize a podcast. There isn't just one way to do it. Some of the ways are more obvious than others. And so I kind of thought through how I wanted to answer Ben. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to answer him with just a simple 2 sentence answer. And so I told him, I said, "Look, I'm going to give you a gift." And he didn't know what I did with platform launchers. He didn't know who I was, none of those details. So apparently, my son had filled him in a little bit on platform launchers while I was teeing off. And so Ben knew a little bit about it, I guess, by the point when I offered this to him. But I said, "I'm going to give you free access." So I gave him one of my courses for free, gave him free access to my launch plan course. Now, it's a course, I told him, it's about more than podcasting. It's about all sorts of things about online platform development. But I told him, I'm certain you're going to find it helpful. And I said, after you finish the course, get back to me and I'll be happy to help you. And so I didn't actually know if he would bother to do it. I didn't know if he would bother to take the course. I didn't know if he would bother to get back to me. But to his credit, and I don't know, Ben might even be listening. So, Ben, if you're listening, I was impressed when you got back to me. He did both. He took the course and he got back to me. And in fact, I received some follow up texts from him this week. So, what I'm about to do is I'm going to share with you my conversation with Ben word for word. I'm just going to read it to you. I'm just going to read the texts as he typed them and as I typed them, because they answer the question, how do you make money from a podcast? So here we go. This is our texting conversation. We're going to dive right into my phone. All right. Ben said, "So I've been watching your videos, but I'm still a little confused on how I really can make money doing this podcast." And I said, "Well, I sell advertising, or I use dynamic ad insertion on my shows. I also use the shows to point people to my websites where I offer courses, coaching, community, books, mentorship." And I said, "You could also use crowdfunding options like buymeacoffee.com or patreon.com." And so in my reply here, I was just trying to list for him some of the main ways people tend to monetize podcasts. But then Ben asked a follow up question almost immediately. And he said, "But if I don't have a following, how would that attract people?" So he was curious, if I'm just starting from scratch, what am I supposed to do here? If I don't have a following, how are people actually going to be finding my content? And I said to him, "All right, well, the truth is, for any of this to work, you do need to build a following. The way you build a following is by creating content consistently and making sure that content is always helpful." Then I said to him, I said, "It took me a while before I was able to monetize my shows. I didn't do it right away. But the first form of monetization I used was crowdfunding. And it worked pretty well. I just would ask people after each show if they wanted to support it. They could just follow a link that was in the show notes, and they could support the show through the crowdfunding." And then I told Ben, I said, then it occurred to me that I could also use the shows to start promoting some of my books. And so I did that as well. I wrote various books and I made them available online and told people about them through the shows. And then I also told Ben this. I said, in time, my audience grew. And I was also able to offer advertising options for people who wanted to pay for them. And then I said to him, now most podcast hosting services offer something called dynamic ad insertion. And what the way that works is there's an advertising marketplace of pre-recorded content, and you could use that as an option. You just select from that. Now, I'm going to take a little sip here. But I explained to him the idea of dynamic ad insertion. I'd encourage you to follow up with that. And I said, earning an income is most definitely possible, but there are steps that need to be focused on before that. I call them the 5 Ds of online platform development. You need to discover your message, deliver your content, develop your tribe, deploy your team, and then derive your income. So I guess he thought about it for a little bit. And then soon after that, I got another text from Ben, and he said, "All right, so what do you recommend for me to start monetizing? Or what are the right steps to start with if you don't have a following yet?" Excuse me. And I said, "All right, we'll get super clear about your message. Make sure it's exactly what people need and want from you. And then set a content delivery schedule of at least one new episode per week and never miss a week. And then 3, reach out to other podcasters and offer a cross promotion opportunity where you'll promote their show and they'll promote yours." And that's where our conversation ended so far. In fact, that last text was just earlier today. And so these are the suggestions that I gave to Ben. Now, everything I said to him, that came from years of trial and error, years of trying a variety of things, years of looking at what was going on in the online space and saying, okay, I want to make this the most helpful it can be. And I'd certainly love to be able to earn an income from the work that I'm putting into this. But I didn't understand how that all worked on day one. And Ben's learning that obviously as well. But maybe if you're new to podcasting, you're thinking, how can this be done? Or maybe you've been podcasting for a while and you've been thinking, I've never really monetized what I'm doing. I create my content, but I don't know. Is there a monetization plan I should follow? The details that I shared with Ben, and by the way, you could see this conversation if you go to platformlaunchers.com and you click in the blog. You'll be able to see this conversation. If you don't see it right away, just search for the word podcasting, and it'll start to come up in your feed on the blog. But I have to say, I'm very encouraged by Ben's enthusiasm. Now, I apologize. I'm going to take another drink here. Another swig of water. I've been fighting a cold this week. Don't you hate when you're fighting a cold, especially when you're a podcast host? But his enthusiasm very much encouraged me, and I really hope he sticks with podcasting long enough to make it work. But what did you notice about my answers to him? Could you sense a little tension between his questions and my responses? He visited the idea of monetization from several different angles, and I gave him answers, but I'm not 100% certain the answers I gave him were what he wanted. Ben, like most new podcasters, would love to monetize their show immediately. Sometimes that happens, but the truth is it rarely works that way. It actually takes time to build authority, takes time to develop a listening base. I think just like running a brick and mortar business, you have to do a good job providing a valuable product before you can expect to make an income. Now, I am absolutely in favor of making an income from podcasting and from offering other products and services online. I have to say, doing so has been a game changer for me in many ways. But I do have a caution for anyone who may be about to start a show with income generation as their primary motivation. I don't think good shows work that way. I have 2 primary goals for the content I record, write, and speak, and neither of them are financial. Now, again, I think it's healthy and good to earn, an income from the content you're creating. But my 2 primary goals for the content that I record, write, and speak are not financial. My first goal is to glorify God with whatever I teach or communicate. That's my first goal. That's what I want to do most of all. My second goal is to serve people well and to do so with integrity. And as I've noticed this, that as I continue to make these my primary goals, I've also seen God graciously entrust me with financial blessings as the fruit of my labor. But the other part of this is this: whether or not I make a penny from what I'm doing in the future, I can't predict that. I have no idea if I will. I still have as my heart's desire the goals of glorifying God and serving people. That's what motivates me. And if you're going to create a podcast or any form of content, you've got to have a deeper motivation than just something financial. It's got to go deeper than that. Otherwise, the show's not really going to come from the heart, and it's probably not going to serve people as well as it ought to. So again, if you're a podcaster specifically, and if you're asking the same questions Ben is asking, let me encourage you to build your show on the right foundation with the right motivation. And honestly, it won't surprise me if you do that. It won't surprise me to learn that your show will eventually become a financial success as well. I do think that they tend to go oftentimes hand in hand. Well, thanks so much for being with us this week. Again, probably a little hard to listen to a podcast when the host is wrestling with a frog in his throat, a little bit of a cold. It's been a tough week for me. So pray for me if you think of it. But I really appreciate you tuning in, whether you watch us on YouTube, whether you listen on the podcast. Always a blast to be able to share this time with you. Again, you can stop over at platformlaunchers.com. Got a whole bunch of stuff over there. Uh, Most of it's free. We also have a bunch of things in our university that are paid resources that I hope will help you in what you're building and growing and monetizing as your online platform grows and expands. We've got some resources there that can help save you a lot of time and a lot of trouble, and we're so happy to be able to make those available. And that's it for us this week. Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to catching up with you right here again next week. Take care.